Did You Know podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there is another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, we got a good program tonight, and I think you'll be very interested in my guests. But before I get there, let me just say a couple other things. The attack of Black history, just think about that. Nobody wants to tell our story, but you know what? We're going to tell our story, but one of the things we need to do is tell our story to our children. That's what we need to do, and there's no excuse. There's too many libraries out there. They can Google, they got the internet, and I'm sure many of you have been arguing over things, and then you turned around and Googled it. So you can start Googling history, find out a lot about us. We must remember who we are, who died for us to have the quality of life we enjoy. And most of all, we must remember that we do not need government permission or assistance to teach our history to our own and any others. And I want you to keep that in mind, because that's very important. So it's our excuses if we don't do that. Like I said, everybody else, every other nationality doesn't have a problem. They tell their young people what's going on and how they got to where they got to. And I've shared this with you before. Part of the problem is a lot of young people don't know who they are. They need to know that we had great leaders. They need to know that we were somebody and we're still somebody and they are somebody. Because I think that you will understand what I'm trying to say. So this critical race theory and don't want to tell history, we have to deal with it. In America, that's been part of your problem. You haven't wanted to deal with the real reality of history. Now, I'm troubled. We always have these mass shootings, and we all know that there was one at Michigan State University. But I was even troubled a little bit more. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I went to Westinghouse. It was Westinghouse High School then, and now it's called Westinghouse Academy in Pittsburgh, in the Homewood section. And last Tuesday, 4 students were shot as they left the high school. There's something wrong with that. We got to stop this killing and shooting. And of course, they haven't found out who did it. They don't know the suspects or the motive. The good thing is that they all survived. They all are recovering. We got to stop it. A lot of times we don't react to it because it doesn't relate to us. But as time progresses on, it's starting to relate to us. So now these kids are doing remote learning right now. And, we're already behind in urban schools. We're already behind educational wise. So this is just another blimp on the Richter scale. So I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it. We owe ourselves a responsibility in our community to help stop gun violence, killing on killing. You always hear this, somebody else wants it out for you. But what are we doing? What are we doing about trying to make sure that crime, black on black crime, any crime, killing people, once you pull that trigger, you can't come back and pull that bullet back. As I said before, you have disturbed not only the family that was murdered, but the family who committed it. You have now brought more people into it. So I'm going to say this one more time. I'm going to keep saying it, matter of fact. We got to stop this. We just got to stop this shooting and killing. You got people scared. Listen, you got kids scared to go to school. You got people scared to go to the grocery store. As I shared with you, I remember my father, he used to sit out on the porch, but then after a while, when it got dark, went in the house and locked the door because he was scared. Some of you scared to go out after dark now. Some of you scared to go shopping. Some of you scared to go to the movies. That's not right. That's not fair. And who's it fair to? Nobody. We shouldn't live that way. So as I said before, all of us are responsible. I'm responsible, you're responsible, churches or organizations, everybody responsible. And we're going to have to continue to work to better our community. I will say it again, enough is enough. So I'll leave you with this on this. If you believe it takes a village to raise a child, support families, and transform a community, then it's our job to start working together. All right, now, what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, it's Black History, but I'm not going to talk about Black History. One of the things that I do believe in this program is to make sure that the most important thing is to bring people on who can give you information, bring people on that are doing many, many different things. And so tonight I have the fortunate I have two good friends on. I've known them for a long time. And we're going to talk about building wealth in the Black community, a few $100s at a time. Now, as I bring them on, as I get ready to bring them on, we're going to talk about Black wealth, and they're going to talk about what they're into. And so if you're interested in what they're into, then you need to do your due diligence and your research to see if that's what you want to do. So I'm making it very clear here. Yes, I am friends of them. And I'm also making it very clear that this is not an endorsement, but this is for you to think about, understand, and if you want to go that way, you're going to go that way. But before I bring them on, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves, I decided I'm going to read something. He felt his poverty, a cent, without a home, without land, tools, or savings. He had entered into a competition with rich, land-skilled neighbors. To be a poor man is hard, but to be a poor race in a land of dollars is the very bottom of hardships. Think about that. I'm going to kick that off, and W.E. Du Bois is the one that quoted that. So I want people to think about this before I bring them in. Now, Black America makes up about roughly 13% of U.S. population, but hold just about 3% of this country's wealth. So I'm going to bring them on so they can maybe try to get that to be 4%. So I have two people on, and I have Tonya on, and I have Brother Lawrence on. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to have each one introduce themselves, but not only they're going to introduce themselves, but I want them to tell their journey, who they are and how they got there. And the reason I do this all the time, because I want people out there to look at you guys and say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it. Because that's been the problem. We don't have a lot of role models. And if we do have them, who tells the story about our role models? Or unfortunately, at this point in time, TV, they map us out, they draw us, and people think that's the way we all are. And that's why I have this program, Did You Know, so that I can bring people on like you that look like you, and you can tell them, hey, I was just like you. So I'm going to kick it off with the good brother. All right, Doc, you go first. Say who you are, what you do, and where you came from. And then Tonya, you can go next, since he likes to think he's in control.
Thank you very much, Richard. My name is Dr. Jameson Lawrence, and I am from the Maryland area. I spent most of my career, as Richard knows, in the legal and finance area. I owned an investment banking company that I started in 1995 called BVFR and Associates, bringing value for reward. And it was always a very interesting thing to parlay from the traditional practice of corporate finance. And then I was a district attorney, and certainly lived in that particular universe 4 or 5 years, but spent my formative years from my late 20s, now in my early 50s, essentially as a businessman. I knew from day one that I wanted to be in business so that I could empower others who look like me. And I was fortunate enough to learn about a highly funded but little known program called the USDA Business and Industry Loan Guarantee Program. And the long and short of that journey for me was transitioning from, like most of you, having a 9-to-5 job that paid me very well. I worked 80 to 100 hours, a week in that job. And I literally decided that I did not want to spend my time using my badge to put people who look like me away into the criminal justice system. I wanted to create economic opportunities that would allow them to see that if they were able to have a good idea and meet the right people and get the right resources, they would be able to own their own business and then maintain that business so that they could hire others. And those people would then generate and churn ideas that would allow them to transition into being business owners themselves. And from 1995 until 2017, I was the CEO and founder of BVFR and Associates. And it struck me as odd that when I left the Baltimore area to come to Harrisburg, which is where I met Richard and other celebrities and well-respected politicians and government officials and business people, that we were the only 100% minority-owned investment banking company in central Pennsylvania. And so you can think of central Pennsylvania as the dead center of PA. You have Pittsburgh to the west and Philadelphia to the east, and you got 67 counties, and we were smack dab in the middle of that state in the capital, and we literally were the only Black-owned investment banking firm. And a lot of you might not know what an investment banker does, but think of us as money people. Business owners came to us when they wanted to start a business, when they wanted to expand their business, and also when they were at the end of that time frame and they wanted to sell that business and transfer their wealth to their kids or to another business owner, and they needed capital to do that. And so I became well known nationally as an expert in helping people navigate what I call the government maze of multi millions and billions of dollars of funds. And quite honestly, I was not helping a lot of people who looked like me, even though we were based in Harrisburg with offices in Baltimore, our headquarters, Jackson, Mississippi, Alexandria. We really did not have a lot of customers who were African-American or brown. And that was disappointing to me. So it was always, how do I utilize my expertise as a lawyer, utilize my finance skills to help people get the money they wanted to start their business, but then to help them stay in business and to help them help more people like us, so that I'm not anti-white, I'm not anti-anybody. I'm certainly pro-Black, and I'm proud of that. And so a part of my legacy was trying to figure out, what boards could I sit on and what community initiatives could I participate in as a business owner that would help more young Black boys and Black girls see me as a role model and understand they could certainly become a doctor, they could certainly become a lawyer, they could become an investment banker, they could do a number of things that would give them a specific set of skills that would allow them to matriculate into being successful business owners. And as Richard was saying earlier, part of that journey is figuring out not just what you do day to day for your own family, but what are the things that you can put in place that sets other people up to be able to have legacy wealth for themselves, so that not only are they living well while they're alive, but they're stamping a footprint into their own destiny that acts as a germ to feed the destiny for their children and their grandchildren and their neighbors and friends and people that they've met over time. And I think that's an important story to be told. And so hopefully over the course of this interaction, you'll be able to hear what my wife, Tonya, and I are doing right now, as we were blessed enough to, retire through an exit strategy for me and a company called Chesapeake Renewable Energy. I was able to sell a 4.4 megawatt solar farm to Constellation Energy, which is the third largest energy company in the United States, and exit from the day-to-day, stress of work and employees. And while that was great for Tonya and I and allowed us to travel the world and see a lot of things, it didn't do a lot to feed our community. And what we're doing right now, I think, is the largest testament to my ability to share information with you that you can verify on your own and make decisions about what you can do for your family and your friends and your colleagues and the people you know. So I'll turn it over to Tonya, and I look forward to sharing more with you.
Tonya, my good friend, you got it.
You should have let me go first. Well, my name is Tonya Lawrence.
Of course.
My name is Tonya Lawrence. I too was born in Pittsburgh, lived there for a short time. My family was from the North Side, from Northview Heights to be specific. And it's been a long journey from the North Side to getting to where I am today, through a lot of love and nurturing with my family, knowing that they wanted something different in life. They knew that they had to make huge sacrifices for education, for placement in different programs and opportunities, so that I could be in the right place in the right time. And one of those things, it was the right place, the right time, was being an entrepreneur already, and then meeting my husband, who was a serial entrepreneur. And so us coming together, being like-minded, having the same passion of kind of helping people. And now I just needed to learn the skill set of finance and how to help businesses get finance. And that, as he said, is what we did for a long time. And something that is a little known fact that most people, probably no one knows, is that in addition to helping people secure financing, helping people be strategic about access to capital, we helped businesses be able to transition and turn into ESOPs, which means that the individuals who worked at the company became part owners of the company when the CEO retired. We help business owners be able to retire and turn that business over to their grandchildren with no debt. I mean, there were so many different things that we were able to put into place because of strategic access to capital, that lives were changed everywhere. And Mr. Utley was a big part of our lives, right? He was, I don't know where you were. I think you were probably retired by then when you called me one day and said, "Hey, have you heard about this ARRA stimulus program?" And I said, "No." And you said, "Come on with me." And we went down to the state capitol and we sat in on the meeting the very first time they talked about President Obama's initiative to implement the stimulus program into the economy at a time when investment bankers like us, we could not get anyone financed, even if they had an 800 credit score with no debt. Like, the banking system, it completely shut down in 2008, 2009. So this stimulus program meant a lot. It meant that for business owners, they were able to get access to capital. Different industries were able to be spawned. And so thank you, Mr. Utley, for that invite to that meeting. There were major outcomes that happened because of that meeting. And I hope that the same thing happens tonight, that we're able to impact lives again. One of the big things that happened after going to that meeting, learning about the stimulus program, and hearing the person who was in charge for the state of Pennsylvania struggle with the acronym and struggle with what the program was designed to do in a meeting, I was like, ding, 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 light bulb moment. I called him. He was at the Baltimore office, and I said, "Honey, this is it. we got a new program. And we stayed up all night reading the regulations, mastering what the program was about. And one of the big meetings that I had right after that, soon after that, was meeting with the Dauphin County commissioners and getting them positioned to be able to get some of the bonds that were available through that program. And so people all over Dauphin County may or may not realize that that initiative came from that one call that you made to me. And then later, my husband alluded to the fact that he was able to purchase, be a part of the purchase of a company and a start of a solar farm that he eventually sold to Constellation Energy and set us up for retirement and gave us the freedom and the ability to say, okay, what's next? What are we looking at next? What do we want to do? It took a couple months of us being bored, driving each other crazy, sitting in the house, which people who are like us, type A personalities that like to get out there and get things done, we're problem solvers. We do things, we execute. So sitting around doing nothing didn't quite work for us. So we started figuring out, what is it that we wanted to do? And we got into the space of learning about blockchain technology, the future of blockchain technology, other things that could happen from this space. And most of what's happening from this space is that people are becoming very wealthy because of this technology. People are creating new careers because of this technology. And it's something that we have to have our eyes open to. We have to say, I'm not going to be afraid of something new, because usually what happens for us as a people, we're told, don't enter into that space, don't do that, oh, that's bad, we get punished for it. And then, oh, all of a sudden it becomes legal, the government's taxing it, and it's the best thing to happen in the world. And guess what? We don't own anything. And so now we're in a space where we're out here in the trenches at the very beginning. We're essentially only an 8-year-old industry, educating people about blockchain technology, how it works. And to be clear, like Mr. Utley said, you do have to do your research and your due diligence, because with anything, there's always going to be bad actors, right? My husband had a career putting people away in jail because they were bad actors as a federal prosecutor. There are always going to be bad actors, but there is the opportunity for people to get into a space that will become the future. So much so that colleges and universities, when our youngest daughter got accepted into Goucher and we sat there for the open house night, one of the things that made our ears perk up and made us say, please let her pick this school, is because the president who graduated from Stanford University was at Goucher as a brand new president and said, we're changing the curriculum. We're changing the degrees that students can get at this university, because we understand that blockchain technology is coming and it will wipe out the jobs that were previously around and available for people. And for us, that just spoke volumes, because you have to be putting yourself in a position to be ready for what's happening in the future. We all see that there are million square foot warehouses that Amazon owns that there's not one single person that works at, all operated by robots. We're seeing the automation of cars. We're seeing that down here, Royal Farms is really big. There's a Royal Farm on every community. It's the equivalent of Turkey Hill, right? Or Hess gas station. You can go to a Royal Farm and no one is working there except for the guy on the air fryer for the chicken. But you go, you pay for your gas, you buy your food, you get your snacks, it's all automated. Automation's coming, blockchain technology is here to stay, and we are very vested in helping people learn just one thing that you could do with blockchain technology to set your family up for legacy wealth. Guys, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't require becoming a rocket scientist in the interim, because we all use the computer, right? We all use the internet, but do any of us really know the mechanics, how the computer is working? Do we really know how we're here streaming on the internet and people all over the world are able to watch this? We don't know exactly how it's happening. We just know it's happening. And those people who got into the .com industry years ago and figured out this is a space, this is happening, we are going to figure out our place in this space and make it work for us, are now multi-millionaires and billionaires. we now have an opportunity to find our small niche in this space and create wealth, legacy wealth. And wealth is different to everyone. Wealth for me means multiple yachts around the world to match my properties. Wealth for someone else may mean that no grandmother's house ever gets lost again because of a tax sale. So it means
Amen.
something different to everyone. And we just want to be a part of helping people understand what's available to them.
Well, I do know, so let's talk about that. I know that you have some new ideas. I know that you're very involved in a company. So why don't you tell us some of the things that you're working on that my audience may be interested in?
Absolutely. Go ahead, babe.
Uh, Richard, in March of last year, I was at my cigar lounge called the Buffalo Room. And I don't know if Tonya was actually there with me or she was at home, but she was certainly cooking up something. And I had the suspicion that something was going on. And she called me, or she popped up at the Buffalo Room. And I was there holding court and enjoying my cigar as I am now. And she said, honey, there's this company, and one of our friends called, and we have to get involved. And by we, she literally meant she was already involved. And now she was dragging me into this new opportunity. That opportunity turned out to be a company called Novatech. And I didn't know anything about it. Tonya shared the video. She shared some background information on the owners, who happen to be African-American husband and wife, Eddie and Cynthia Pettion out of Florida. And I was very impressed with, her mission towards legacy building through her church and her ministry, and how she was smart enough to take this platform from a hedge fund, from an international vantage point. And she did two things that really perked my interest. Most people always say, Tonya, Doc, I want to be like you when I grow up. And it's like, no, you have to be the best version of you and be the best version of you now. And how you do that is by making decisions. People say that knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. Tonya giving me that information and allowing me to take advantage of that was very important. I'm sorry, Richard.
You repeat those 3 wisdom words you just said so that my audience could understand what you just said about them saying, I want to be like you.
Yeah, Richard, I'm an MD/JD by training. My background. I've been very successful, and I'm proud of that legacy that my grandmother Rosalie and my aunt Ethel and my mom Janice and my dad William, installed in me and the family, the tree of people that helped, set branches that I could climb to success. But I don't hold other people to my standard. I hold them to being the best version of themselves. So whenever I hear people say, man, I want to be a millionaire, how do I do that? I tell them, I can show you how to take incremental steps that successful people do on a daily basis and allow you to become the best version of you. Because that's when you know that you're successful, because you've defined it for yourself. And that definition of success will change, as my wife said, when I was 30, it was having a Mercedes. When I was 40, it was having a big house. At 51, it is, we're going to buy a house in St. John's and in New Orleans in the spring, and move from, this very nice area in La La Land of Maryland, and sort of travel the world and see other things. But the opportunity that allows you to do that is, like you said, discipline, right? Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And so I applied my knowledge. I did my due diligence, put $5,000 into this account. I didn't know if it was going to work. I was as skeptical as probably you and other people are that are listening to this. But here it is, I don't know, February 21st of 2023, and I've never not got paid on a Friday. Every single Friday, my $5,000 is over $58,000 right now, and that came from compound interest. Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it. Those who don't understand it pay it. And for too long in the African-American community, all we've mostly been is consumers. It is time for us to be active, philanthropic, and strategic wealth builders. And the company Novatech taught Tonya and I, as people who are already, doing well, how to do better. And more importantly, how to set our 4 kids up so that by the time our 17-year-old is 21, he will be a millionaire. And our 20-year-old son who will be 21 on February 28th will be fine. And our 22-year-old will be fine. And we build 5-year plans in our family. So I will let Tonya, expand on the concept that Novatech has done. But I will tell you this, it is a private hedge fund. It is run by intelligent, well-skilled people who happen to look like us. And I have not been disappointed in the almost year. March 4th will be a year for me. And, from my mother, who's 74 and retired, to our kids, to people like you, Richard, who we have all the respect in the world for, what I would say to you is be skeptical. Skepticism is fine, but don't allow your skepticism to keep you poor. Don't allow your skepticism to give you a poverty set mindset, because that will trap you in a legacy of poverty for the rest of your lives and the lives of the people around you.
Tonya.
Well said, babe.
Thank
So,
you.
True. Our kids are all set up. They have their plans completely different. Our youngest, getting ready to go to college soon, has the complete understanding he doesn't want to work for anyone or have to work for anyone. He wants to be independently wealthy so that he could do what he's passionate about. Our older kids have their career paths that they're already on. They enjoy what they do. Our oldest owns a business. And so for her, being able to give back, being able to impact people is her passion. Our oldest son is a personal trainer. He loves being in the fitness industry. He works in DC at one of the biggest and most expensive gyms in DC. But in order to be able to maintain the lifestyle that he grew up on and be a personal trainer, he has to have something else that creates wealth for him. So he's going to use that to buy properties, to be able to have rental properties and different things. And my husband was talking about, starting with a $5,000 account for himself. I always tell people, and he does as well, no matter what you do, no matter where you invest, if you're going on Cash App to buy Bitcoin, if you're going on Cash App to buy stocks like you can now, only invest what you can afford to lose. And that is different for everyone. 5,000 may be what he'll spend in a month or two sitting at that cigar lounge over there, his accounts right now. For someone else, it may be some shoe money that they were going to waste somewhere. For someone else, it may have been, a trip that they were going to take. We've talked to people and said, you like to travel. You probably take 2 or 3 trips a year. Let's show you how to take money from one of those trips. Forego one vacation this year, put it to the side, let it build interest, and don't use your paycheck, the money from your paycheck, to pay for your trips in the future. Let the interest that you earned on that money pay for your trips in the future. And just that small shift in mindset really helps people have aha moments, because when you reverse that model and you think about what we've been used to collectively is getting things on credit, even though your credit may be great and you may have a low interest rate. That's great. That's what most people strive for. But think about compound interest. Think about how we've been programmed to use it. We all got that first credit card in college, right? They give you the first $500. You're super excited. I know most of mine was spent on pizza. I couldn't go out drinking yet, but we spent a lot of money on pizza and probably some other dumb stuff that I didn't need. And by the time that card was paid off, I paid over $2,000 on that $500 credit. Oh no, they increased the limit to $1,200 after I made a few payments on time. But think about that. We get things on credit, a car, a house, credit cards, and we end up paying interest on it. That interest compounds. And as it's compounding, the amount that you're paying is paying a little bit on the principal, a lot on the interest. And what we're going to show people is how to make your own money compound for you. You put your money away and let that interest that would have been paid to someone else if it was your home. You know, you get a $300,000 mortgage, you end up by the time you're said and done paying over $700,000 on that home over the course of 30 years. How about having a 5-year plan where you have your mortgage and now you can say, I'm going to put X amount aside, let that compound, and at the end of the 5 years, I'll be able to pay my mortgage off. Things like that create legacy wealth. Now you have property that's in the family, you have cash flow that you can add back to your pocket if someone's still working. For a lot of people, it may mean the difference between retiring now and staying on a job for 5 or 6 years later after they were supposed to retire because 401ks took a nosedive over the last year. So again, for everyone, it's something different, a reason why they're now saying, I need a solution. I need something that's going to work for me that I don't have to work for. And that's something that can be off-putting to people. We have been programmed that we're supposed to work for our money, that anything that comes to you easy, anything that comes to you is not good. Guys, that is not the way the universe works. You go anywhere and you see wealthy people on a golf course, you go ride past their house, their wife is walking out of the house with her yoga pants on, like me usually, on the way to the gym, on the way to get a massage, on the way to get their nails done. It's not because they were somewhere working and working to get paid by the hour. You cannot create wealth. You cannot create legacy wealth that way unless you're super disciplined and you stock all your money away. The way that wealthy people create wealth is they attract it to them and they know how to make their money work for them. They don't go get a paycheck and spend that money. They may have a job, they may be a CEO of a company, but when they get that income, they put that income somewhere and they make that income make money for them, and then they spend the profits. Completely different concept, and it's definitely the way that we need to learn to look at things. And for everyone, guys, not having $5,000 isn't a reason not to do something. You can start with as little as $100, and if that means saving $20 a paycheck until you have an extra $100 because things may be tight for someone, do that. It can completely change your life.
Great job.
I think that's interesting what you're saying. One of the things I want to do, and I want to keep going on, is how could people reach you? How can people find out who you are? How do people know that you're legitimate?
Well, what I would say, Richard, is you have my number, you have my email address, and I have no problem with people calling and sending them the information. The great thing about this is it's not about Doc, it's not about Tonya. This is a nearly 4-year-old company that's been around since June of 2019. And typically when I'm talking to professionals, other lawyers and business owners and doctors and folks like that, I send them a snapshot of what Novatech, the company, sends to us as an investor, which is here is every Friday in 2022, and here's the average return that I receive on my money from the day that I started on March 4th until Friday that just passed, and it's live, and it doesn't matter to me. Like, I never try to convince people why they should be wealthy. What I do is I show them the opportunity that allows them to empower themselves to change their circumstance. And there's no sell point here. I'm never mad. I will sit here and smoke my cigars and live a really great life, whether they get involved or not. What I try to do, as you have, Richard, is to empower people who look like me so that they're not on the treadmill, right? So that they're not like a swan on the water and they look beautiful on the surface, but their feet are like that underneath the water. That's not our lifestyle. And it shouldn't just be, certain people who know that. My mother is 74 years old. She worked for 40 years at Sinai Hospital. She certainly will be fine. But when my mother learned about this, she said, Jamie, the money's going to come to you. You're the lawyer in the family. You're going to share with your siblings or whatever. Put me into Novatech, not for us, not for my siblings, but for our kids. And that was powerful for me. So I'm certainly not going to advance an idea for my mother or people that I care about that I don't have my own proof of concept and my own money in. And I tell people, start where you want, fit in, get in where you fit in. If, as Tonya said, if it's $100, it's $100. If it's 100,000, it's 100,000. If it's 1,000, it's not my company, Richard. So I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I simply give them the same information, the same video, the same financial information, the data that I had that they can review, and then they can make an informed decision. Won't hurt my feelings either way, whether they get on board or don't get on board. But I can tell you, Henderson Whitaker, my grandfather, when I was 70 years old, he told me I was going to be somebody. And he said, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, but you got to be in the room. And that stuck with me. It's like, you got to have a ticket to gain entry to the play. If you don't have a ticket, you can't get in. So if I'm telling you, here's what's been a positive experience for me and my family and my friends and people that I care about, get in where you fit in. I think everybody that we know, Richard, who are at least 25 years old can afford to find or borrow $100 to forge forward something positive for their own future. And here's the proof in the pudding, Richard. If you put $500 in or 5,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is, either you see that you get paid on Friday or you don't. It's not rocket science. It's not heavy lifting here. And that's what made me very comfortable. I'm not a public official. I gain nothing by telling you guys that this is a way that can help your family. I simply want to benefit people who look like me, not to the exclusion of others. White people, all kinds of people can get into at their own. The people that I'm focusing this message on are people who happen to look like me, young, middle-aged, and old, have a right to make decisions that can positively impact their lives. That's where we're coming from. So Dr. J at BVFR, I'm sorry, Dr. J at gmail.com. By all means, Richard, you can post that here in the chat. You have my email. They're free to call me, 410-499-0007. I'm happy again to have conversations with folks. Tonya and I can do a Zoom call with them. If they want to come down to Maryland and sit in the cigar lounge and have a cigar with me, I'm a real person. They can reach out and touch me. And I'm happy to show them why I feel so passionately about helping people help themselves. That's where I'm coming from.
So, Tonya, what else you're going to say? But I'll repeat again. He did say his phone number is 410-499-0007.
You got it.
We're going to get the email address up on so that people can see it. I encourage people to do their own research because that's what's important. But one of the things that's very important, and that's why I have this program, so that people can see people like you knowing that they can do it.
Because I appreciate that, Richard.
That's been the problem. Even though you keep talking about cigars, I think people need to also know that you do own a cigar shop or bar or whatever it is. What is it? What do you own?
We have ownership in the Buffalo Room, which is in downtown Baltimore on Water Street, 108 Water Street. It is second and third level of Supano's restaurant. And again, people can call me if they're interested, and I'd be happy to have them come down if they are cigar smokers or they just want to get out of town. And certainly Harrisburg is home for Tonya. So to the extent that a lot of your listeners are there, Richard, I'm happy to come to your studio there and sit down or meet at a local, watering hole or wherever. And Tonya and I can, talk to 5 people or 500 people and answer their questions and put them on the same data trail that we were on a year ago when we made the decision to take this leap of faith and participate in, for me, what has been a magnificent learning experience. And like I said, it's us to be able to know that there's a Black female-owned hedge fund that has been successful every single week since June of 2019. If you can find another one, Richard pointed out to me, it's the only one that I know of, and I'm proud of my affiliation. There's no, I'm not a paid actor. I'm simply a regular person who is an investor who's done well, and I want people to do well and to take this ride, and they can surpass Tonya and I, and buy their own yachts or buy whatever makes sense for them, or buy nothing, but post a positive direction in their lives that shows their kids and their neighbors and their friends they can do it too. You can do it. The only thing that stands in your way between wealth and opportunity is the execution of that opportunity. That's it. Applied knowledge is power, not just power itself, not just knowledge. You have to apply what you learn in a way that's constructive and productive, and use it for your benefit and the benefit of the people you care about.
Tonya?
Yeah. So we're talking about research. We've been talking about research a lot here, and you asked, how can people know that we're real people? There's two different ways to research, right? Everyone knows Google. So it's very easy to Google myself and to Google my husband. You'll find, and especially in central Pennsylvania, lots of information about us, about different projects that we worked on, about being um, 40 under 40 or 30 under 30. I don't remember what those programs are, but all those different programs on the cover of magazines in Harrisburg because of the work that we were doing in the finance arena. You'll be able to see all that. And people need that. If we're sitting together and you say, oh man, I heard it's going to be nice today, and we're both sitting outside, we could feel the warm weather. One of us is going to pick up our phone and look at the weather report, right? Just out of verification. We feel the need to verify things. So that's natural. But when it comes to research and researching a company, understand that we are in America, right? We know what that means at different times in different places. When there is a Black-owned company that is creating massive wealth for people, regardless of color, but an overwhelming majority, Richard talked about 13% of the people being minorities, and we only represent 3% of the wealth. Well, in Novatech, we're probably more like 90% of the company, and we represent the wealth. And when you have that type of impact, you will have people who aren't happy about it. And so when you Google, there are different things that you want to look for when you're looking to research any company. If there's a company that's doing well enough, or a person that's doing well enough, it doesn't matter if it's LeBron James, Oprah Winfrey, the CEO of Novatech, there's going to be someone that has something negative to say, and it may be a personal opinion. Don't take someone's personal opinion as a fact. Look at their intent. Look to see if they're a registered company, if they're a registered individual, if they're someone with any type of authority, and most importantly, what is their intent? Because there are other companies out there who have similar platforms like Novatech. They'll do things like, because Novatech gets so much traction because of what it's done, and they know that if they attach their name to Novatech, but then trash Novatech or the Black CEO, oh gosh, why would you want to do business with a Black company? Black people don't know anything about money, right? When they trash that person, then they say at the bottom of their website, oh, but click here, I can help you. My ice is colder, right? So that is one type of research you need to be aware of. When you're looking up a company, you look at state websites, you look at authority figures, look at where the company's registered, look at if there are any legal infractions from the company. You look at that type of stuff to do research when you're talking about a financial institution. We as individuals, you'll see us at the different media sources that have recognized us for the work that we've done over the years. So I just wanted to share that. And of course, yes, coming to connect and sit down and work with people. My husband will invite you out to a cigar meeting in a heartbeat. We actually had an event at the Buffalo Room last summer. It was over 50 people from the DMV that came and packed that room out. We had a guest speaker, someone with a portfolio of over, in less than a year, over $13 million in their portfolio, flew up from Houston to talk about Novatech, what it's done for their life, what it's done for their family. His wife's portfolio, no, I'm sorry, his portfolio is over 15 million. His wife's is over 13 million. So being able to have households where multiple people in the household have massive portfolio, guys, it changes the pillow talk. It gets real different when you're sitting there talking about wealth, prosperity, and not being stressed out. most divorces are because of finances. If we have a way to alleviate financial stress, to put a plan in place that people are able to put into action right away, I am just so happy to be a part of the solution, like we have been for over 20 years with our investment banking firm, helping businesses. Now we get to help individuals.
For those of the audience, in the comment section, you will see their information there. So you'll see his email there as well as the phone number. So, but I'll give you the phone number because 410-499-0007. And you can also look in there and you can see the Dr. JBVFR at Gmail. So you'll be able to get that in the comments section. So I would tell this audience to reach out, do your research, do your homework. Because like you said earlier, Tonya, one of the problems has always been is that, especially for African Americans, we have created a mistrust about each other. And that has hurt us for a long, long time. And we need to get over it, because I am a big believer that if we're talking about wealth, not only wealth, but economic opportunity, it has to come from ourselves. We keep waiting on somebody, and I'm sure my audience is tired of me saying this. They keep waiting on somebody and this horse to ride through our neighborhood and make it all right. It ain't gonna happen. It hadn't happened before. And I think if people understand the climate of this country now, you know it's not going to happen. So I would suggest us to look at many things, to create entrepreneurship, to create businesses. And one of the things that you both have been saying that people don't understand, a lot of people got great ideas, and some of them could go far, but they have no capital. And they have no vehicle of getting capital. Like you said, Tonya, earlier, you can have 800 on your credit score, but they will find some other reason why you can't. That's why it's important for us to learn to invest. That's why it's about our own community. You know, people talk about not investing in your community. I am convinced of this, and maybe I'm crazy, that if we don't develop entrepreneurship in our communities, we're in trouble, because that's the bulk of us that's going to hire our young people. You get a young person way back and they do something stupid. It could be dumb. They were young. So all of a sudden, years later, somebody says that they apply for a job. So, oh, no, you can't have the job because you stole that pack of cigarettes when you were 18 years old. Now you're 30. So you haven't done anything. You have been very product of the community. So we need people to look at that and understand that. We talk about the criminal justice system, and then once you do the crime, you do the time, and then you come out. No one wants to embrace you. And then you want to know why they do some of the things they go back and do. Because if they could get jobs and be respected, that would help our community. And people don't understand the residual part. So what I'm going to do for both of you, time has really been flying here. So you really, Tonya, probably you got like 5 minutes to really tell us what you really want my audience to hear. And I want the people to understand this, because people don't know just in Harrisburg listen to this, but I got people listening all over. So say what you feel that you want to say, because I know that we've all talked about legacies. We all want to believe that we're doing something for the better man, better than us. So you two got it.
Okay, thank you, Richard. First of all, you touched on something, recidivism. We've all had a family member, everyone in our community has had a family member who's been impacted by the criminal justice system. And you know that person, you know that person's heart. It may have been something really stupid with the wrong people, got caught up, or they did something on their own that, man, life happened, right? They got caught up in the system, and then there's the recidivism rate. But there's also, like you said, those people who come out and say, okay, I want to do something different, but there's no opportunity. I've been so elated that it does not matter what color you are, how much money you have, what degree you have, if you own a business, if you've been incarcerated, if you've never had a job. Novatech does not look at that. You as an individual get to decide what you want for your future. So we have at least two people who are ex-felons or convicts who got jobs as truck drivers, set up Novatech accounts, and are on a path to be able to own multiple fleets of trucks, because while they're out driving, their money's making money for them. That's a game. Like, for me, that's better than any $500 million deal we could have done for someone who doesn't look like us, who's not going to hire anyone that looks like us, that's not going to impact our community outside of us buying their product. That to me means that there's some little girl that's got her daddy at home. That to me means that there's some grandpa who's going to be at the barbershop with their grandson or at his football game. That means a reemergence of the community, right? And so for each one of us listening or now live or listening to the replay, I want you to understand that this is an opportunity, no matter who you are, where you are, that you can start with something, anything, a minimum of $100, but we will also help you and work with you. Number one, to get through the process, which is very simple. It takes me about 10 minutes, boom, 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 you're in, your money's working for you. But you have that ability to make your money work for you, getting an average return of 3% a week. And what that means to you is that your money will double every 6 months. So if you're just talking simple math, you start with $1,000, and in 3 years, that's over $1 million that you have in an account, because it's been sitting there earning compound interest on a weekly basis. Remember, I talked about that. The same with your mortgage where it's an annual percentage rate, or your car payment that has an annual percentage rate. That's an annual percentage rate. Imagine if they charge that interest rate every week. We would be paying through the nose for our house or for our car. Well, now you get to make your money pay you through the nose. So
What
Tonya,
about what
talk
about
about. I'm
say
sorry, Ricky.
what about if somebody says, in like, they'll say, I hear this, but how I know they're not the Bernie Madoffs and stuff? Because those are the kinds of mental things that's out there. So how do you tell them that how they need to do their research?
absolutely. Again, looking at the company registrations, and if they call my husband, he can get them the links for where the company's registered. They can then take and look at those registering authorities and say, hey, have there been any infractions? Has anyone ever said they haven't paid me? They can also look and see what the returns have been every week since the company opened. And so when they get to see those things, they get to see that the company is legitimate. But when we talk about taking action, putting yourself in a position where you're not just knowledgeable, but you're applying the knowledge, that means setting up your own account. It doesn't matter, $100, $500, $5,000, whatever your budget is, start with that. Put yourself in a position that your money doubles in 6 months, and then take out your principal. That means that if you started with 500, let it double in 6 months. And we're talking about 500 you're going to waste anyway, because we waste money, right? We can all agree to that. Let that double in 6 months. Take that $500 back out, then put it in your savings account, invest it in some stocks, do something else valuable with it. Don't put it back into that spending habit that we had before. Put it back to work for you in a different stream for you, because you need to have multiple portfolios. But now that original amount that you put into Novatech, you got it back out. It's in your pocket. So it's only your profits that are making money for you. This is how you put yourself in a position to say, okay, I'm still going to be able to sleep at night. My mortgage is still going to get paid. My kids' tuition is still going to get paid. That takes the angst away from letting your money make money for you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well,
Richard, I want to say one thing. Most people like you and I have, Merrill Lynch accounts, Security and Financials, one of my folks, JP Morgan Chase. All of my portfolios are easily down 20, 25%. And when I went to my financial advisors and I said to them, hey, here's my information, here's what I'm doing with Novatech. Is there anything that you have my money in right now that's going to give me an average return of 3%? There was resounding silence, because what they want is for me to leave my money into their account for them to manage, and they get paid whether I'm losing money or making money. Novatech is the only investment I've had, as I said, since March of last year, where I've never had a loss. I've had times where I've gotten more than 3%. I certainly had times where I got less than 3%, but it's all found money. I've already got, 1,000 times my $500 investment. So there's no reason in the world for me to be a skeptic when something now going on a year has worked for me. Everybody can still keep their traditional passport savings and get, 2% a year if that's what they want. But to me, the proof is in the pudding. Like I said, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You have to take mitigated risk based on, your own intelligence and based on your own risk threshold to figure out, hey, I'm going to use, like Tanya said, I'm going to, spend $2,000 on cigars. Why wouldn't I put that in a Black-owned hedge fund that has been around since June of 2019? With or without Doc, they're going to be around another 5-10 years, God bless. I'm taking the benefit of my experience and my own money and putting my money where my mouth is. I'm not telling anyone to do anything that I haven't done myself, and I won't be mad at them, more disappointed if they don't take advantage of something that could be helpful to them. That's all I have to say.
Well, unfortunately, time has moved so fast here this evening.
This was a lot of fun, Richard. Thank you.
I want to say this. I want the audience to do your due diligence. You can call them up or you can email them. We put it in the comment line so that you can reach them, so you know who they are. But the whole purpose of my program is, did you know, is so that you can get exposure to what people are doing. And I really want people on to look like us so that people can say, if they can do it, I can do it. So thank you again. And I'm sure I will have you back on again.
Look forward to it.
And, like you said, you own a cigar place down there, and I'm sure there will be some people that will come down there. And I think what I will do, since maybe when it gets warm out there, maybe we'll all get together and have people come, and they can see you, touch you, and see that you guys are real. So thank you.
Look forward to it.
Audience,
Thanks,
that you got something out of this. It's about exposure. If you don't know about it, you can't deal with it. So my job or my platform is to give you exposures to see what different people are doing. So thank you again. I'm looking forward to it, to another Did You Know?
Thanks, Richard. Take care.
Thanks, Mr. Utley.
Voice 17104. We will be here on the Voice 17104. Welcome to Did You Know? 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and/or comments.